All right, so you're thinking about Wells Fargo,
Ticker symbol WFC.
right, WFC,
Mm.
and trying to decide if it should be in your portfolio.
Smart move to be doing your research.
You know it.
We've got some great info here from Zach's investment research, and we also pulled some background from their Wikipedia page.
And trust me, it's a wild ride.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is that Zach gives Wells Fargo a buy rating,
A buy rating.
meaning that they expect it to do better than the overall market.
Gotcha.
And on top of that, they gave it a Zach's rank of 2,
Zach's rank of 2.
which historically has seen some pretty nice annualized returns.
Okay, so far so good, right?
Yeah.
But then things get a little weird.
How so?
They also gave Wells Fargo a growth score of F.
An F.
An F.
Wow.
Like you aced your history exam but failed gym class, you know?
Yeah, something doesn't quite add up.
Right.
Exactly.
Doesn't add up.
That's the kind of contradiction we're going to unpack today.
Let's do it.
To understand it, we need to step back in time a bit. Did you know that Wells Fargo has been around since the gold rush era?
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, founded by the same guys who started American Express.
Really?
They've seen a lot of change, to say the least.
That's quite a legacy, but with all that history, I'm guessing some baggage comes along too.
You're not wrong.
Some big acquisitions over the years, like buying Wachovia during the 2008 financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of aggressive growth makes that growth score of F even more puzzling.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really raises some questions.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And if we look closer, we actually see a pattern of controversies,
Oh, no.
which might explain why they're being held back.
Interesting. Like what?
Remember the account fraud scandal back in 2016?
Oh, yeah, I do remember that.
Millions of fake accounts opened without customers knowing.
Major yikes.
It was a huge blow to their reputation.
Definitely. And it doesn't end there.
Yep.
It feels like a whole laundry list of lawsuits and fines. Overdraft fees, mortgage practices, even accusations of discrimination.
A lot to unpack.
Right. Makes you wonder how all this negative press affects their future.
And more importantly, how it affects you as a potential investor.
Exactly.
Now, despite all that, Zach still gives Wells Fargo a value score of B.
Okay, so even with all that baggage.
This is where things get interesting, especially for those value investors out there.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for us.
What makes them attractive from a value perspective?
Yeah.
Well, if you look at their key metrics, like their price-to-earnings ratio
PE ratio.
and their price-to-book ratio,
PB ratio.
all of this suggests that their stock might actually be undervalued right now.
So what you're saying is...
Their current price may not reflect their true worth.
Gotcha. So there's some potential upside there.
Potentially.
But past performance isn't everything right.
Right.
What about their innovation?
Yeah, are they keeping up with the times?
Yeah.
Well, they are making some moves.
Like what?
Pushing into mobile banking. Made some strategic acquisitions.
Like what?
Like snagging GE Capital Rail Services.
GE Capital Rail Services, I'm not familiar.
Big player in rail car leasing and financing.
Ah.
This acquisition shows that they are diversifying and potentially creating some new revenue streams.
Okay, so we've got this buy rating, but this scary growth score. Past full of controversies, but also some signs of potential and innovation.
It's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag for sure, but to figure out if Wells Fargo is right for you, we need to weigh the pros and cons carefully.
And that's exactly what we'll do in part 2 of this deep dive.
I'm ready when you are.
We're going to dig even deeper into their financials,
Love it.
their market share, the services they offer, and even their overall economic impact.
It's going to get really interesting.
It is. Picking up where we left off, let's talk about Wells Fargo's dividend policy and share buybacks.
Okay, for those of us who need a quick reminder, can you explain what those are and why they matter to investors?
Of course. A dividend is basically a portion of the company's profits that they pay out to their shareholders,
Got it.
usually each quarter.
So like a little bonus for owning the stock.
Exactly. Think of it as a thank you for being an investor.
I like bonuses.
So is Wells Fargo known for being generous with their dividends?
Yeah. Are they good tippers?
Historically, yes.
Okay.
They have a reputation for pretty consistent dividend payments.
That's good.
Of course, like many financial institutions, they had to cut back during the 2008 crisis.
Right. Makes sense.
But since then, they've been gradually increasing it back to a decent level.
That's reassuring. Shows commitment to their investors.
Yeah, for sure.
What about share buybacks? What's the deal with those?
So share buybacks happen when a company uses its own cash to buy back its own shares
Okay.
from the market.
Interesting.
This reduces the number of shares that are out there, which can increase the value of the remaining shares.
Got it.
And Wells Fargo has actually been actively repurchasing their stock,
Oh, really?
which suggests they believe that it's currently undervalued.
Interesting. It's like they're trying to sweeten the deal for investors.
In a way, yeah.
Okay, well, let's not forget about the elephant in the room.
Which is?
ESG factors.
Yeah.
Environmental, social, and governance.
Those are becoming increasingly important for investors these days.
Big time. You know, people want their portfolios to align with their values.
Absolutely.
So how does Wells Fargo stack up on the ESG front?
Well, it's a mixed bag.
Figures.
As we mentioned earlier, they've been criticized for some of their lending practices and their involvement in controversial projects.
Like what?
Like the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Right.
And all of this has raised concerns about their environmental and social impact.
Yeah, I'm sure that didn't help that growth score we talked about earlier.
It's definitely not.
But have they done anything to address these concerns?
They haven't completely ignored it.
Okay, well, that's a start at least.
They've set some goals, to reduce their emissions
Okay.
and increase diversity in their workforce.
Sounds like they're trying, but still have room for improvement.
That's a fair assessment.
It feels like every aspect of Wells Fargo has its pluses and minuses.
It really does. It's a complex company.
That's for sure.
A long history, a solid financial foundation, but also some challenges that they're still dealing with.
Yeah, for sure. So ultimately, is it a good fit for my portfolio?
Well, like we always say, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Of course.
Really depends on your individual investment goals,
Makes sense.
your risk tolerance, and even your personal values.
Right. All personal.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on to our final thoughts on Wells Fargo and whether it deserves a spot in your portfolio,
Yes.
we want to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely.
Head over to our YouTube channel
That's right.
and let us know what you think.
Would you invest in Wells Fargo?
Why or why not?
And while you're there, drop a comment and let us know what other companies
Yes.
or topics you'd like us to deep dive into next.
We love hearing from you.
We do. We love getting suggestions from our amazing viewers.
Okay, so we've really gone deep into Wells Fargo.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Fascinating history.
Yeah, definitely.
Dug into their financials, grappled with all those controversies.
It's been a roller coaster.
It really has. But the big question remains, is Wells Fargo right for your portfolio?
Well, like we always say, there's no magic answer.
Right.
It really depends on your goals as an investor,
Of course.
your risk tolerance, and even your values.
Yeah, for example, if you're all about value investing,
Right.
those PE ratios and price to book, all that,
Uh-huh.
Wells Fargo might seem like a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And their history of dividends is a big plus for people who want steady income.
Absolutely. But we can't just ignore those past controversies.
No, definitely not.
The account fraud scandal, the lawsuits, the fines.
Right.
They've definitely damaged the company's reputation.
Yeah, that's a tough one to come back from.
And it could have a real impact on their future growth.
It's like when you're looking at a cool vintage car.
Oh, yeah.
It looks amazing, so much potential.
Right.
But then you find out it's got a history of engine trouble.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
Exactly. And for those who care about ESG factors,
Right.
those environmental and social concerns we talked about, those are big.
They really are.
So where do we land on Wells Fargo?
It's tough, isn't it?
They've got strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats.
So many contradictions.
It really is a mixed bag.
Yeah, but here's a final thought to consider.
Okay, I'm listening.
Look past the headlines and the hype.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I know, but really dig deep into their efforts
To fix things.
to address the issues.
Okay.
How are they improving their ESG performance?
Uh-huh.
What are their strategies for growth and innovation?
Good question.
And then ask yourself, do their actions actually match your expectations?
As an investor,
Exactly.
that's good advice.
Thanks.
Informed decisions are always the best decisions.
Couldn't agree more.
Do your research and figure out what's right for you.
Absolutely.
And hey, while you're at it, head over to our YouTube channel.
Yes.
Let us know your thoughts on Wells Fargo.
Would you invest?
Why or why not?
We want to hear from you.
And tell us what other companies or topics you'd like us to deep dive into next.
We're always looking for fascinating new things to explore.
That's right. Until next time, happy investing.